Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes in life, the most powerful thing we can say is nothing at all. I'm talking about the art of silence. It's not weakness, not at all. In fact, silence can be your greatest weapon. When the world expects you to react, to explode, to respond to every little thing, imagine this: you pause, you take a breath, and you just stay still. Here's the thing: when you don't react right away, people start to wonder. They're left with questions, and suddenly they're the ones off balance. That silence, it makes people think. It makes them question everything they thought they knew about you. But remember, silence isn't about retreating or running away. It's about control. Control over yourself, over your emotions, and over the narrative. In silence, you gain clarity. You gain strength. Let me tell you this: you don't owe anyone an immediate response. The power in silence is that it gives you time. Time to reflect. Time to process. Time to choose how you want to move forward. And when you do speak, it's not out of anger or frustration, it's with purpose, with wisdom, and with intention. Because silence is a stance, a position of power. It's the ultimate surprise. And trust me, when they expect noise, you'll leave them stunned with your quiet strength. Silence is power. There's something so profound in the act of choosing not to speak when the world expects you to. You see, we live in a time where everyone is shouting over each other, trying to be heard, trying to make a point, trying to be right. But real power, real strength, it's found in the ability to hold back. To sit with your thoughts, your emotions, and not feel the need to explain or defend yourself. Silence gives you control. It allows you to take command of the room without saying a single word. Have you ever noticed how, in moments of silence, people lean in, they listen harder, they pay more attention? They don't quite know what you're thinking, and that right there is the power. Because when you speak too soon, you might say something you didn't mean or something that gives away too much. But in silence, they don't have that advantage. There's an old saying: he who speaks first loses in the stillness of your silence. You are gathering strength. You are listening. You are watching. And in those moments, you're learning more than you ever could if you were filling the air with noise. Silence allows you to understand the dynamics of a situation, the motives of others, the true essence of what's being said and what's not being said. The beauty of silence is that it's unshakable. No one can interrupt it. No one can twist it. No one can manipulate it. Silence is yours and yours alone. It's where you reclaim your power when it feels like the world is trying to pull you in every direction. It's in the pause that you find your balance, your truth. And make no mistake, silence isn't passive. It's an active choice. It's a choice to rise above the noise, to not be baited into emotional reactions or forced into situations that don't serve you. Silence is the ground you stand on when you know who you are, and nothing can push you off that foundation. So when you're faced with chaos, confusion, or confrontation, remember that your silence is not surrender. It's strategy, it's poise, it's power. In that moment, when the world is expecting you to break, to respond, to react, choose silence. Let your silence speak louder than any words could. Because in that quiet, you're not just showing strength, you are strength. It creates wonder. There's something magical about leaving people guessing. When you choose silence instead of a reaction, instead of explaining yourself or laying it all out there, you leave room for curiosity. You let people's minds wander. And in that space, they start to wonder about you. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, why you're not responding the way they expected. They're left trying to piece together a puzzle without all the pieces. That's the beauty of it. Because when you're silent, you aren't predictable anymore. You've stepped out of the box that people often try to put you in. They think they know you, they think they've got you all figured out, but when you don't give them that instant response, suddenly they're not so sure. They're left asking questions about you, about themselves, about the situation. And in those questions, you've already gained the upper hand. When you speak too soon, you give everything away. People can take your words and interpret them however they want, but when you stay quiet, you remain a mystery. And let me tell you, there's power in that mystery. People are drawn to what they can't quite understand. They start to fill in the blanks, and usually they'll make it bigger, more complex than it really is. That's the wonder you create. In their minds, your silence turns into strategy. It turns into depth. They start to wonder if maybe you know something they don't, if maybe you're seeing things they're not seeing. And here's the thing, when people wonder, they stop focusing on you and start focusing on themselves. They begin to question their own actions, their own motives. Did they say the right thing? Did they push too hard? What's going on behind your silence? And while they're busy wondering, you're standing there calm, composed, and in control. Silence gives you room to watch how others react. It allows you to see how they handle uncertainty, how they handle not knowing. And in that space of wonder, they reveal so much more than they would if you were constantly filling the silence with explanations or justifications. You learn about them what makes them tick, what rattles them, what they truly want. So when you choose silence, you're not just withholding words. You're creating a moment of wonder, a moment where anything feels possible, and where you are the one in control of how the story unfolds. In that silence, you become someone they have to figure out, and that's powerful. Because in the end, wonder leads to curiosity, and curiosity always leads to respect. Time for reflection is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. When we choose to be silent, we're choosing to step back, to breathe, to pause before jumping into action. In that space of silence, you get the chance to look inward. It's about more than just avoiding an immediate reaction. It's about creating a moment to really think, to process what's happening around you and within you. You see, when we're constantly speaking, constantly reacting, we don't leave room for clarity. But when you're silent, you allow yourself that moment to reflect on what you truly feel. It's in those quiet moments that you start to see things for what they really are. You begin to understand why something made you feel the way it did, or what the real issue is behind the surface. It's the time when emotions settle, and in that settling, everything becomes clear. Reflection is where growth happens. It's where you get to ask yourself the important questions. What do I want out of this situation? What's the lesson here? How do I really feel? Not just in this moment, but underneath it all. And that's the kind of clarity that silence brings. When you're not rushing to respond, you're giving yourself the gift of perspective. In this space, you can weigh your options, see the bigger picture, and decide what kind of person you want to be in this moment. Reflection doesn't just help you understand the situation, it helps you understand yourself. It's about aligning your actions with your values, making sure that when you do speak, when you do act, it's coming from a place of intention and wisdom, not just impulse. And let's be honest, life can be overwhelming. It throws so much at us all the time, people, emotions, situations that can take us by surprise. If we don't take that time to reflect, we're just reacting over and over again. But when you create that pause, that silence, you're giving yourself a chance to reset. To ask what's the best way forward, not what's the quickest reaction. In the silence, you gain the power to respond in a way that's true to who you are. And when you come from a place of reflection, your words carry more weight. Your actions have more meaning. Because you've taken the time to think about them to make sure they're aligned with what you truly want. Reflection allows you to make choices that serve your highest self, not just your immediate emotions. So in that silence, in that space for reflection, you're not only understanding the world better, you're understanding yourself better. And when you know yourself, you're unshakable. It prevents escalation. You see, silence has a way of calming the storm before it even begins. In moments of conflict or tension, when emotions are running high and words are being thrown around, the natural instinct is often to jump in, to defend yourself, to fight back. But when you choose silence, you disrupt that cycle. You stop the fire from spreading. When you don't react, when you don't engage, you take away the fuel that keeps the argument burning. It's not about being passive, it's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that not every battle is worth fighting, and sometimes the best way to win is by not fighting at all. Silence is a way of saying, I'm not going to let this escalate. I'm not going to let this moment control me. I think about it when two people are arguing, it's like a dance. One says something, the other responds, and before you know it, the heat of the moment has taken over. But if one person steps back, if one person chooses silence instead of retaliation, the dance stops. The energy shifts. And in that moment, the power dynamics change. The tension begins to dissolve because escalation requires participation, and you've taken yourself out of that equation. Silence gives you the ability to hold your ground without engaging in unnecessary conflict. It's a way of setting a boundary, of saying, I'm not going to be dragged into this and that boundary. It protects you. It keeps you from being swept up in someone else's anger, frustration, or negativity. It prevents you from saying things you don't mean, from reacting in ways you might later regret. Sometimes silence is the most mature response. It shows that you are in control of yourself, of your emotions, and that you won't be provoked. And let me tell you, that kind of control, it's powerful. When people expect you to react and you don't, it throws them off balance. It diffuses the situation. They're left with their own energy, and without your reaction to feed off of, that energy starts to fade. It's in that space of silence that the situation has a chance to cool down. Because when there's no back and forth, no exchange of hurtful words or heightened emotions, the heat of the moment begins to subside. It allows everyone involved to take a step back, to breathe, and to reassess what's really going on. And often, what seems so urgent or upsetting in the moment starts to lose its intensity when met with silence. Choosing silence isn't about giving up, it's about choosing peace over conflict. It's about deciding that your energy is too valuable to waste on things that don't serve you. And sometimes the greatest way to show your strength is by refusing to escalate, by refusing to let the situation control you. In that silence, you create space for understanding, for clarity, and for resolution without the unnecessary drama that comes from reacting in the heat of the moment. You prevent escalation not by fighting harder, but by simply not fighting harder. And that, my friend, is where true power lies. Enhances clarity. You see, silence has this unique ability to cut through all the noise, the confusion, the distractions, and bring you to a place of stillness where everything becomes clear. In a world that's constantly pulling you in every direction, demanding your attention, your reaction, your voice silence is where you find your focus. It's where the fog lifts, and suddenly what once felt overwhelming or complicated starts to make sense. When you stop speaking, when you stop reacting immediately, you give yourself a moment to listen, to really listen. Not just to the words being said around you, but to the truth inside of you. In silence, you can hear what your intuition is telling you. You can hear your own thoughts without them being drowned out by the opinions and expectations of others. It's in that silence that you can tune into what really matters, and in doing so, clarity begins to emerge. Silence allows you to sift through what's important and what isn't. When we're caught up in the hustle of life, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the details, by the drama, by all the things pulling at our emotions. But in silence, you create the space to step back and see the bigger picture. You get to ask yourself, what's really going on here? What do I truly want? What's the best way forward? It's in that quiet space that you begin to see things as they are, not as you fear them to be or as others have painted them. Silence gives you the distance to look at a situation objectively. You can separate the noise from the truth, the chaos from the calm. And when you're not in a rush to respond, when you give yourself that time to reflect, you gain a level of clarity that reaction can't offer. When your mind is quiet, your vision becomes sharper. You start to see the patterns in life, the underlying truths that are often hidden beneath the surface of our busyness. Silence strips away the unnecessary layers of stress and distraction, revealing what's real and what's not. It helps you recognize the difference between a fleeting emotion and a deeper truth. And let's not forget, clarity isn't just about seeing situations more clearly. It's about seeing yourself more clearly too. In silence, you get to check in with yourself, to ask, how do I really feel about this? What is my truth in this moment? You create the space to reconnect with your core, to align your actions and your words with your true intentions. And when you have that kind of clarity, your decisions become more intentional, your actions more purposeful. The power of silence is that it creates a filter, a way for you to tune out the noise of the world and tune into the wisdom inside of you. And that's where true clarity comes from. Not from reacting, not from rushing, but from listening. Listening to yourself, listening to the moment, and trusting that the answers will come if you give them the space to reveal themselves. In that stillness, you find the clarity that allows you to move forward, not with confusion or hesitation, but with certainty and grace. You see the path ahead with eyes wide open, and you walk it with confidence, knowing that your decisions are coming from a place of truth. That's what silence does. It doesn't just quiet the world around you, it sharpens your vision and deepens your understanding. And when you have clarity, there's nothing you can't handle. A purposeful response is a response that comes from a place of intention. It's not rushed, it's not reactive, and it's not about proving a point or winning an argument. No, a purposeful response is rooted in wisdom, thoughtfulness, and clarity. It's the kind of response that comes after you've taken the time to reflect, to consider what truly matters, and to align your words and actions with your deeper values. You see, when you pause and give yourself the space of silence, you create the opportunity for your response to be meaningful. You're not just saying the first thing that comes to mind, you're saying the thing that's aligned with your truth. And that, my friend, is power. Because a purposeful response is not about reacting to the emotions of the moment, it's about responding in a way that reflects who you are and what you stand for. When you respond with purpose, you bring clarity to the conversation. It's not about defending yourself or engaging in unnecessary conflict. It's about expressing what's true for you in a way that's grounded, calm, and intentional. Purposeful responses carry weight. They're not just words filling the space, they're words that move the conversation forward, that bring understanding, that invite resolution. Purposeful responses are also measured. They come from a place of understanding the bigger picture. You're not reacting to the immediate situation, you're thinking about the long term. What do I want this interaction to accomplish? How do I want to leave this person feeling? What is the real issue here, and how can my response address that rather than just the surface level emotions? And here's the thing, when you respond with purpose, you take control of the narrative. You're no longer being dragged into someone else's emotional chaos or agenda. You're setting the tone, you're deciding how the conversation will proceed. It's like setting your own rhythm in a song that others have been playing too fast, too loud. A purposeful response slows everything down, centers the moment, and gives you the power to steer it in a direction that aligns with your values. Purposeful responses also come from a place of empathy. They acknowledge the emotions of the moment but aren't controlled by them. You can see the situation from multiple perspectives. You understand the other person's feelings, but you don't let those emotions dictate your response. Instead, you rise above the immediate heat of the moment and respond in a way that is constructive, not destructive. When you take the time to respond with purpose, you ensure that your words are not just a reaction to someone else's energy, but a reflection of your own energy. You're not just caught up in the back and forth, you're standing firm in who you are and what you believe. And when you do that, your response doesn't just solve the problem in hand, it strengthens your relationships, builds trust, and leaves a lasting impression of integrity. A purposeful response is intentional, powerful, and grounded. It's the kind of response that stays with people, that moves situations forward, and that leaves you feeling proud of how you handled it. It's not just about what you say, it's about why you're saying it and how it aligns with who you are. And when you respond from that place of purpose, you can navigate any situation with grace, wisdom, and strength. When you choose silence, you create space not just for yourself, but for others as well. In that stillness, you can tune into what someone else might be feeling rather than getting caught up in your own emotions. It allows you to step into their shoes, to listen beyond the words being spoken, and to understand the pain or fear that might be driving their actions. That's empathy in action. When you respond from a place of empathy, your words carry a different weight. They're not sharp or defensive, but thoughtful and compassionate. You're no longer trying to win or be right. You're focused on creating connection, on fostering understanding. And that kind of response, it has the power to change the entire energy of a conversation. It can transform conflict into healing, confusion into clarity, and separation into unity. Surprising strength comes from the places people least expect. It's the kind of strength that isn't loud or forceful, but quietly reveals itself in moments of silence, in the calm before the storm, in the stillness when everyone else is rushing to react. This strength doesn't show up with grand gestures or bold declarations. No, it's the kind of strength that sneaks up on people, leaving them wondering how someone so composed, so seemingly quiet, could carry such power. You see, there's a kind of strength that people are used to seeing, the kind that's in your face, full of noise and fire. But there's another kind of strength, a deeper kind, that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need validation or applause. It's the strength that comes from within, the strength that comes from knowing who you are, from being grounded in your truth, and from choosing not to react to every little thing that tries to shake you. This surprising strength shows itself in your ability to stay calm when chaos is all around you. It's the strength that shows up when people are expecting you to crumble, but you don't. When they're waiting for you to react, to explode, to give them the drama they're anticipating, but instead, you hold your ground in silence with grace and poise. That kind of strength that catches people off guard. It's unexpected because it doesn't fit the usual mold of power that people are familiar with. It's not about dominating or overpowering, it's about rising above. Surprising strength is also found in your resilience. It's when life throws its hardest challenges at you, and instead of breaking, you bend. You may be knocked down, but you get back up again and again. And not in a way that's loud or attention-seeking, but in a way that's steady, consistent, and enduring. People expect strength to look a certain way. But when they see you rising quietly, with dignity and grace, it leaves them in awe. This kind of strength is often misjudged, underestimated. People might think that because you're quiet, you're weak. Because you're not reacting, you don't care. But what they don't realize is that your silence, your restraint, is where your true strength lies. It's easy to react, to let emotions take over. But holding back, taking that breath, pausing before responding, that's where real power is. Surprising strength also shows up in your ability to choose peace over conflict, to know when to walk away from a battle that's not worth fighting, to stand firm in your boundaries without having to explain or justify yourself. People often expect strength to be loud, to be a fight. But choosing not to engage, choosing not to escalate, especially when provoked, that's a strength most people don't see coming. It's the strength that shows when you choose to forgive, even when forgiveness feels like the last thing you want to do. It's in the grace you extend to others, not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to carry the burden of anger. That kind of strength, it surprises people. It surprises them because they think strength is about holding on, about being tough. But the strongest among us know that true power often lies in letting go. Surprising strength is also about vulnerability. It's about knowing that being open, being real, being authentic in your emotions doesn't make you weak, it makes you courageous. When you can stand in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard, you're showing a strength that many people don't expect. They expect you to hide, to put up walls. But when you're brave enough to be seen fully, that's a strength that shakes people to their core. So the next time someone underestimates your quiet, your calm, your restraint, let them. Because what they don't realize is that beneath the surface, there's a strength they couldn't even imagine. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need validation, that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. It's the kind of strength that's rooted in peace, in clarity, and in purpose. And when it reveals itself, it surprises everyone, even those who thought they knew you. So next time you're tempted to react, pause. Choose silence. Let them wonder. Let them guess, and when the time is right, you'll speak with clarity and strength that no one can confuse.